Good afternoon and welcome to Fast Horses Today. Today is Saturday. It is April 5th and it's Santa Anita Derby Day. So big card over there at Santa Anita today, which, a lot of big fields there and a lot of great betting opportunities, especially towards the latter half of the card. So that's where I'm going to focus in. I'm going to skip over the first several races and I'm going to play the late pick 5, which does start in the 8th race today over at Santa Anita. That has a post time of about approximately 3:40 Pacific, so 5:40 here Central Time Zone. The 8th race starts off as a maiden special weight Calbred race, and these are 3-year-olds, and they're running 6 furlongs on the dirt. And I'm going to put 2 horses in here I think should get this pick 5 started. I'm going to first go with the 3 horse, who is Outworker at 10-1, Kim Yakteen and Antonio Fresu. Now this horse has run twice and had the misfortune of running up against Roman Gratis twice in maiden races, and you may wonder how that works out, but it's because Roman Gratis won his first race, got DQ'd, came back again to win his next race, and Outworker was in with him both times. So first time out, Outworker had a terrible start and has really trailed the field big time. And Roman Gratis, as we've seen, has a lot of speed there. So he really, kind of strung out that field. Outworker came up to end up running third in that race, and ended up getting probably overbet in his next start because of that troubled start. So he was probably about 6-5, 7-5 in his next start. Got out much more cleanly, and just kind of stalked and didn't finish. So I'm going to give him a pass there. I think this horse will certainly get forgotten today because of that last race, and you know what, he might end up showing some ability. We'll put Outworker in, and then I'm going to put the 7 horse being Beer Buzz for Craig DeLassy and Kyle Frey, and this is your program favorite today. He's 5-2, and he had the misfortune of running against Roman Gratis. Now he got a couple changes here in his second start. I thought he ran a really, really nice race in his first start of his life against Roman Gratis. He ended up getting out very nicely, and as I mentioned, that horse is very fast. And ended up going out to a nice lead. Beer Buzz just kind of stalked, and waited and made a nice move into the stretch. Looked like he got a little tired at the end, which, that's to be expected. That was a 6.5 furlong race. And, it's very hard for horses to win first time out at 6.5 furlongs. Seems like that extra half furlong really, does a number on first starter. So I thought he ran really nicely that day. They're putting blinkers on him for this race. So Kyle Frey, who's on him today, must have, noticed something during the race that this horse might need a little more focus. They're putting blinkers on. Now, we know Craig DeLassy's a nice trainer. He had a really good year last year. I know he's off to a scuffling start here, but I think this is the kind of horse can get things going. This horse is a big purchase, $75,000. That's a lot of money for a Calbred. 5-2, Beer Buzz should be really tough. So I'm going to put the 3 and the 7 in this race. I am going to go against another short price who is non-domicile. Non-domicile probably will get some action. He's 7-2 in the program. That's another big purchase price, $125,000 Calbred, trained by Simon Callahan and Umberto Rispoli. I'm going to go against these guys. I'm going to start out this pick 5 with the 3 and the 7. All right, now let's go to the 9th race of the day. 9th race is going down the hill, 6.5 furlongs, down the hill, always beautiful to see that. This is a California allowance race, first level allowance, and this is your pure allowance race. This is not, there is no optional claim to this. This is, just a true non-winners of one. These are 4-year-olds and up, and I just thought it was a very, very open race. A lot of horses seem to have a shot. I'm going to go wide in this race here. I'm going to put the 4, Uncle Chili, Mike Pipey, Juan Hernandez. This horse had one start on grass. He'd been running primarily on dirt. His one start on the grass, which came in his last start, he ended up running a nice race, figured things out late in the race to end up coming second. He's 3-1 today. I think, he'll be dangerous here in this race. Going to put the 6 horse, who is Chrome Flash, Paula Capestro, Jose Valdivia. This was a good team at one time. They've done a lot of work together. This horse does show runs. Makes him live in this race, is run down the hill and run well. Probably should have won his race back on February 2nd. Ended up getting kind of hung out wide and floated wide coming over that dirt crossing into the stretch down the hill, and ended up coming third. But I thought he ran a live race. This horse has been running nice races this year and just coming up short. But at 10-1, we'll put this horse in here. That would be Chrome Flash. Going to also put the 7, who is Smiling Beast, Brian Corner, and Ayuso takes the call. And we saw Ayuso have a really good day yesterday. Now, this horse has had 3 starts in his career, so he's lightly raced as a 5-year-old. Having 2 starts back in 2024 and won them both, then something, went amiss. This horse had, well, not really a long layoff, a couple months there. Ended up coming back at Santa Anita, running back in January and running on the dirt again. This horse has been 3 times on the dirt, so this will be his first turf start, which I do like. I feel this horse looks like has the breeding. First turf should be a nice thing. He ended up running up against Big City Lights, took the lead in the California sprint race, and, ended up running third in a short field, but, certainly no shame in getting beat by Big City Lights. A lot of horses have gotten beaten by Big City Lights. So we'll put this horse in here off that layoff. This horse might get the lead, and you never know, can get brave going down the hill. So we'll put Smiling Beast in here. Going to also put the 8 horse, who is Piper's Causeway. Jesus Haranga, and Aguilar takes the call. Now this horse has been, running in a lot of different types of races. Has been going the 1,000-yard distance at Los Al several times and doing well there. Has run on the turf. His turf races are pretty good. Ran a nice race in that February 2nd race with Chrome Flash. Was right there on the wire himself, and followed that up with a 1,000-yard race over at Los Al, which he ended up winning. And you've got to be pretty fast and pretty sharp to win those races. So 6-1, we'll put Piper's Causeway because this horse has shown the ability to run on turf as well and run down the hill. Then going to put the 10 horse being Private Gem from Mark Glatt, Umberto Rispoli. Now this horse, came off a very long layoff. This horse had 2 starts back in 2023. Broke his maiden first out in a maiden claimer. Glatt found it suitable to claim this horse after his, out of that first start, which was a win. Ended up putting him in a stake race back in November 2023. Ran a nice race, ended up coming second. So something definitely went amiss there because we hadn't seen this horse since back in February. So horse ran back in February, was able to run in a starter allowance race because of that claim. So was eligible for that. Nice placement of this horse because he ended up coming out and winning, first time out in a long time on the turf. So this horse certainly merits, more consideration here. 7-2, we'll put Private Gem in. And then finally, I'm going to put the 12 horse, who is Catman Sue, for Jeff Mullins and Hector Berrios. Now, these guys have definitely done some nice work together, Mullins and Hector Berrios. This horse, nice horse, 4-year-old colt, $100,000 Calbred purchase. Always something to take notice. That's a lot of money for a Calbred. This horse ended up winning his first start back in 2023. And then, had a okay year back in 2024. Ran a couple even races, just got beat on the wire back last year at Santa Anita, on the turf. There's a comeback race here. We haven't seen this horse since June of last year. And, Mullins certainly good enough trainer to get things done off a layoff. And, this horse is 15-1. So we'll take a shot here with a price here at 15-1 in Catman Sue. All right, so we've got the 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 12. All right, now let's move over to the next race. Next race being the 10th race. And this is the one that everyone's been waiting for. This is Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby, and it's 1 1/8 on the dirt. And I feel like they've been taking some unnecessary flack for only having a 5-horse field. It's a 5-horse field, but it's a pretty competitive field. I feel like 4 out of the 5 runners do have a chance to win this race, and it would be a big win for any of these 4 runners. So this is your 3-year-olds, and these horses are on the trail to the Derby. So there's points to be had here. Again, I feel like it's a competitive race. The 1 journalism, 6-5 in the program, Michael McCarthy, Umberto Rispoli, looked like this horse wanted distance all along, with his breeding, being out of an Uncle Mare Mo Mapatism, by Curlin. So this horse definitely, distance was his best friend. And he's shown it. When they put this horse 2 turns, he graduated first time out in a maiden race at Del Mar, ended up coming back, winning the Los Al Futurity, which is a grade 2, and then winning the San Felipe, which is a grade 2, and beating Barnes, beating Rodriguez. So I think this horse is just, he's improved every time out, certainly worth the favoritism at 6-5. The 2-horse Citizen Bull, another really nice horse. This is out of the Baffert barn. This horse has 5 starts, 4 wins, and a third. And, and those wins include grade 1 wins in the American Pharoah, and in the Breeders' Cup, Juvenile, and in the grade 3 Bob Lewis. The horse's only loss was in the grade 1 Del Mar Futurity. So this horse has certainly gotten it done at different distances, and different tracks. And, looks like this will be your pace setter. And, Martin Garcia into ride, is a nice story these guys, connected again, Garcia and Baffert, and I don't know if they're both singing a little Peaches and Herb reunited, and it feels so good. I think at least Garcia will probably be singing that because looks like he's got a nice one here. So we'll put Citizen Bull in here. So we've got the 1 and the 2. Also going to put Barnes. It's the other Bob Baffert horse. Don't want to forget about Barnes. This is the horse that got a lot of hype. $3.2 million purchase. Juan Hernandez on the horse here. This was the horse, Bob Baffert wanted to make his big proclamation that he was back at Churchill Downs. He sent this horse over there last year to break his maiden, ironically with Martin Garcia. That was, the first start he was able to do there at Churchill Downs after the, few-year ban for, what he was banned for. And, this horse got it done, ended up breaking his maiden in probably a tougher than they wanted their maiden race at Churchill. Came back to win the San Vicente, which is a grade 2, but at 7 furlongs. So then his first, 2-turn start was in the San Felipe, where he did get beat by Journalism. He was a big favorite that day. He'll kind of probably get forgotten here today at 3-1. But you know what? As we've seen a lot of times, Baffert's, bigger price beats the lower price. So Barnes certainly merits a chance here. I'll put him in here. Then finally, I'm going to put in Baeza. Baeza, trained by John Sheriffs, ridden by Hector Barrios. Hector Barrios seems to have a lot of live ones today. Now this horse, $1.2 million purchase. Certainly no surprise here. This horse is the little brother to Mage and to Dornoch, having the same mom, Puka. So, they bred this horse to McKenzie. Certainly a big nod to McKenzie. This horse, seems to be, rounding into form, or getting into form, I should say. He's had 3 starts. And, they've put this horse first time out in December at Del Mar on a 6-furlong mile grass race. I don't know that this horse wanted to run a mile on the grass, but, probably was just a race. Sheriffs needed to get a race into this horse. So came back, ended up running a mile race over at Santa Anita, got beat by Rodriguez, who Rodriguez is a nice horse, and Rodriguez will be one of the shorter price favorites on the other coast over in the Wood Memorial. So we'll have to see how he does. And then, next time out was his third start. Horse ended up breaking his maiden in a maiden race. And, nice speed figure. Ran the race very nicely. We know the distance is what this horse wants to do, seeing what his family and his bloodlines have produced. So give this horse a shot here at 1 1/8 miles. Baeza certainly, would probably need to win the race. I don't know if second place will do it as far as getting points, for the Derby. But, Baeza is certainly worth a shot here at 6-1. We'll see. We'll see if that extra 1/8 of a mile, helps horses like Baeza, and certainly I think will help Journalism. So I'm going to put the 1, 2, 4, and 5 here in the Santa Anita Derby. I think they all, merit a shot here. All right, now let's go to the 11th race. 11th race is a first level allowance. This is an open allowance, running down the hill, always beautiful. I'm a big fan of that. And these are fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. And I'm going to single a horse here in this race. This is a big field. A lot of tough horses here. I have a single. I'm going to take a shot here. This horse is 8-1, and I really like her today. That's Miss Roberts for Jeff Mullins and Hector Barrios. Mentioned Barrios has a lot of live horses, and certainly a tough bunch of horses. We're going to see if Miss Roberts can get a nice trip and finish up. I like her 2 races here in Southern California. This horse originally had come from ran in Great Britain, and then this horse had a campaign last year at Woodbine. Running on their synthetic, running on their turf. I don't know if this was a private purchase or what was the case, but this horse, got sent over to Santa Anita under the care of Jeff Mullins. Has had 2 starts here, and let's focus in on those 2 starts. First time out in California was down the hill, just like they're doing today. Horse ended up getting beat by a horse named Venganza. Venganza was a nice winner that day and came back to win again, and I know Venganza's running earlier in the card, so we'll have to see how Venganza does, but Venganza, I think, is running in the Grade 3 Monrovia. That's a graded stakes there. So Miss Roberts, I thought, ran a nice second to Venganza that day. And, just showed a lot of ability, a lot of run late. And, it was a nice race there. She followed that up with a race in the Wishing Well. And that was over the 6-furlong flat grass course, which is much different than the down the hill as we've seen. She ended up running into Queen Maxima. And I think Queen Maxima is probably the morning line favorite and going to probably be the big favorite in the Monrovia earlier today. But I don't think there's any shame in losing to Queen Maxima. Queen Maxima's done a lot of great work this year, and she's a very nice horse. And, in watching the film, on that Wishing Well Stakes. I wondered, what happened to Miss Roberts? Why'd she finish 5 out of 6? And I just feel like this horse might have just bounced off that big effort down the hill. She was running a nice race, getting to the stretch. Queen Maxim was kind of gone, and Hector Berrios just kind of took care of the horse and just, finished up the race and didn't really, get after her too much. I mean, Miss Roberts' issue is she's got to get out of the gate clean to not give herself as much to do. I'm hoping that they've worked on that. Mullen's certainly a capable trainer, has done a great job here at Santa Anita. I'm going to single Miss Roberts at 8-1. And you know what? We're going to put a win bet on Miss Roberts as well. So we'll see if we'll get that price at 8-1 on the 5-horse Miss Roberts. All right, now let's go to the last race of the day. Last race of the day being the 12th race. They're having a marathon card there at Santa Anita, that's for sure today. The 12th race has approximate post time of 5:44 Pacific, so that's 7:44 here in the Central Time Zone. They finish up with a second level allowance race, a mile on the grass. And these are 4-year-olds and up, and these are boys. And it's, as I mentioned, second level allowance. Nice race to finish up the card. It'll be an open race. I'm putting 4 horses in here. I'm hoping 4 horses in coverage can get it done here. I've got the 1 horse who is Genius Jimmy from Michael McCarthy. McCarthy puts the apprentice Carmona on the horse again, so he's getting that 5-pound weight break. Now this horse ran last time with Carmona. Carmona ended up taking the lead. This horse had come off a layoff, since last spring of April of 20, so about a year ago. They put him out there early March. The horse just ended up taking the lead, running a mile race, tried to take him to distance, and ended up getting beat on the wire by Heart Headed, which, Heart Headed is in this race, as well as Cathal. Cathal came third that race. We'll talk about those horses momentarily. But at 5-1, I feel like Genius Jimmy's going to have a lot easier time getting the lead from the 1 hole. The apprentice, he's been, doing these rides on the turf. Seems like he's able to get a horse out, get him out, and finishing up has been the thing. He's an apprentice. He's learning. But we'll put Genius Jimmy in here at 5-1. I'm going to also put the 2 horse, who is Lamas. Lamas for Manny Badia and Kyle Frey. And Manuel Badia, putting this horse in, this horse qualifies, and he has 12 wins. And he's an old-timer, 8-year-old gelding, 12 wins, 7 seconds, 4 thirds out of 36 starts, has earned a lot of money, has done some nice work on all different surfaces, including the turf, being a Grade 3 winner, won the San Francisco Mile last year. Reason why this horse is in this race is because they're putting him in for $80,000. So, I don't see it as a panic drop. It's just, you got to run horses where they belong now, and especially, with the closure of Northern California tracks, they've got to find races that they could run their horses. And this would be a opportunity here, putting this horse in for $80,000. If somebody wants to claim an 8-year-old gelding, God bless them and let them claim them. That's probably the thought there. The owners have been in the game for a long time, so they certainly know the game. And, they're just putting a horse in where they can run him. He's 10-1. Lamas, I think, certainly merits a chance here in this race, just because of his back class. He can maybe work out a trip. And we see Kyle Frey pull upsets on the turf, quite often. Going to also put the 3 horse, who is Covey. Covey is Michael McCarthy. Umberto Rispoli takes the call here. Juddmonte Farms bred and own this horse. Nice to see Juddmonte Farms with horses in California. That's always a nice thing. This horse is a kind of a lightly raced horse. I'm going to give this horse a shot off his last race. He ended up running down the hill in the same level race, and I just thought he kind of needed to race over the track. It was been his second off a long layoff. And, I just feel like this horse probably has a little bit more to give. As I mentioned, this is an open race, and, certainly could be won by a long shot. And Covey, Covey is 12-1 today. So we're going to put the 3 Covey in here. And then finally, I'm going to put the 9 horse. 9 horse being the program favorite, Cathal. Cathal for John Sadler, Hector Berrios. This horse is 7-2 in the program. Now, I don't know if this horse will get overbet. We're going to see. This horse certainly, can run. We've seen some nice efforts out of this horse, especially his last couple here at Santa Anita, in the 2-turn races. Had a nice race at 1 1/8, came in a nice third to C. Singer. Bit of a trouble. It looked like Berrios was trying to save a lot of ground and into the stretch. I don't know that worked out as well as he needed it to, so he ended up coming third, a bit of a troubled third. End up running in the same race as Hard Headed, Genius Jimmy, in that race last time out. Got beat a neck coming third. Again, I feel like, the horse probably had a little trouble again. But, we'll see if Hector Berrios can make it a better trip here. As I mentioned, Hector Berrios has a lot of live horses today. And, these jocks, I think they really get up for days like this. You know, it's a big day. This is one of your staples on the California racing calendar is Santa Anita Derby Day. You know, they get big crowds. And, you know, these jocks probably really get up for days like this. And, you know, having a multiple race, winning day would be a big thing for a jock. So we'll see what Hector Barros can do. So we've got the 1, 2, 3, and 9 in the 12th race. All right, now let's recap the day and recap the tickets. Okay, so for today, Santa Anita Derby Day, April 5th, we've got a late pick 5, which does start in the 8th race. We've got a win bet later in the card. So let's get started in the 8th race. I'm going to get the pick 5 started with the 3 and 7, with the 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, with the 1, 2, 4, 5, with the single of the 5, Miss Roberts in the 11th race, and a win bet on Miss Roberts in the 11th race, that's the 5, with the 1, 2, 3, and 9. Now today, that pick 5 ticket is a $96 ticket, and the win bet on Miss Roberts in the 11th race. So if you decide to play as is, I wish you the best of luck. If you'd like to add or subtract, you know, if you want to play the pick 3s within it, play the pick 4 within it, even that late pick 3 would be pretty nice, you know, as well as the daily doubles. So whatever you decide to do, I wish you the best of luck. Let's wish the folks over at Santa Anita a very safe day of racing on their big Santa Anita Derby card. And let's wish ourselves some great luck and some great trips. See if that results in some wins here. So as always, I do appreciate you watching and listening here at Fast Horses today. Like, dislike, make comments. I promise to respond to everything. Thanks again for hitting the subscribe button. And if you haven't done so, please do so for me. Puts you on the feed and the content gets served up to you. Let's have a great day today at Santa Anita for Santa Anita Derby Day. And we'll have more coverage tomorrow on Sunday. Have a great day.